One of the best things that you can do as an American, as a parent, as an individual to stop the deep state is actually really simple. Every parent can do it. You've got to just protect your children from their indoctrination centers that self identify as educational institutions. Stay tuned and I'll tell you more. So, if you've been watching this program for a while now, you know what a disaster the government schools have become. They are indoctrinating our children. They are sexualizing our children. They're teaching them transgenderism. They are dumbing down our children in an unprecedented way. In fact, it's gotten so crazy that in California, the land of fruits and nuts, and as you know, the cancers that start in California very quickly spread across the rest of the United States, they've got the poor kids in the government classrooms chanting to Aztec demon gods of cannibalism and human sacrifice for help in waging what the text describes as a counter genocide against Christians. Okay, this is madness. Okay, this is the deep state in action. This is the deep state using the most important weapon in its arsenal, and that is the indoctrination system masquerading as a public school system. So, one of the most important things you can do, and this is a series on solutions that we're doing as part of this Behind the Deep State, is to get your children out of the indoctrination centers and to do it now. And you're thinking, how do I do that? What do I do? Well, I'm glad you asked because that's what we're going to talk about today. Homeschooling, right? There's different things that you can do once you decide to get your children out, which is the right decision. And we are going to be doing much more on this at the New American and at Freedom Project. We're going to be doing a big campaign around this in the months to come. So stay tuned for more. But right now, I just want to plant a bug in your ear. Okay. Private schools are a good option. We're going to talk about those in an upcoming episode. But I think homeschooling really is the gold standard if you can do it. And I recognize not everybody can do it. But if you can do it, it is the gold standard. One of the books that really solidified my conviction that homeschooling was the way to go was actually written by Israel Wayne. He wrote two of the articles, in our Rescuing Our Children special report for the New American Magazine. He did the ones on homeschooling and Christian education. And he wrote a book called Does God Have an Opinion About Education? Turns out God does have an opinion about education. And what Israel found in the scriptures is that really homeschooling is the biblical model, right? Parents are instructed to educate their children, to teach their children when they wake up, when they're walking by the way, when they're sitting down to eat, when they're going to bed, right? You're supposed to be teaching your children all the time, not just when Caesar doesn't have his mitts on them. And homeschooling is the best way to do that. It's the most effective way to do that. It just so happens that it is incredibly successful, right? And that would be logical, right? Who knows your children better than you do? Who's more qualified to care for your children better than you are? Who loves your children more than you do? You think the government loves your children more than you do? If that's the case, you probably shouldn't be a parent, okay? Because government is not well known for its loving nature. Government is not well known for its affection or its care for the well-being of citizens. And so really the best qualified people on planet Earth are the parents. And really that is where the responsibility should lie. And that's not to say that private schools are bad or that there's something wrong with them. In fact, we highly recommend private education as well. But homeschooling is just so great. And so before you say you're not qualified, recognize that for thousands of years of human history, homeschooling was the norm. In fact, in early America, most of our founding fathers were primarily educated at home. James Madison, George Washington, even later Abraham Lincoln was primarily homeschooled. Some of them went on to go get a little bit of supplemental education in academies or with tutors, and some of them went on to get college degrees. They were going to the best colleges in America when they were 14, 15, translating Hebrew into Latin and then Latin into Greek. I mean, just amazing things that they were doing back then, whereas now we have many of our high school graduates can't even read. We've got the UN, UNESCO trying to standardize education globally. There has never been a better time to get your children out, and there is no person more qualified to teach them than you. I'll emphasize that again. We do know that there are growing attacks on homeschooling. In fact, just last year, thanks to the COVID, the conference ended up being postponed. But a group of anti-parent, anti-family, anti-homeschooling extremists at Harvard University and other places decided they were going to have this big conference and really work to first regulate and then eradicate homeschooling. This was led by a so-called law professor, an anti-Christian extremist, who runs the Child Advocacy Project at Harvard Law School. Her name is Elizabeth Bartholet, and her sidekick, law professor James Dwyer of William and Mary College. Together, this dynamic duo argue that homeschooling should be banned. Right, there should be a presumptive ban on home education. Because white supremacy, true story. And then this James Dwyer character argues that even parental rights, right? We got to get rid of those. In fact, there are no parental rights. The only reason you have a relationship with your child is because the state, in its infinite generosity and wisdom, has decided to confer some responsibilities on you through its maternity and paternity laws. This is craziness. This is kookiness in the extreme. The UN is now peddling this kind of stuff. The UN Human Rights Council got together in 2015 and passed a resolution decrying private education. These are unregulated. How come people aren't obeying our standards that we think are so important? So very, very dangerous trends, but also very, very exciting trends. So on the one hand, you have the totalitarians. They look to Adolf Hitler, the first world leader in human history, to criminalize home education. Right? He's the first person on or to say it's a crime for you to educate your own children. And true story. And so totalitarians all over the world were very inspired by that, and that continues to this day. Even after their denazification in Germany, they decided to keep the homeschool ban. True story. And now, unfortunately, that's spreading like a cancer. You've got North Korea, you've got Cuba, you've got China, you've got all these places trying to crack down on and stop homeschooling. And of course, Sweden. Really terrible. But at the same time, really good things are happening on this front as well. Some of you who watch this program regularly, or if you go over to Freedom Project, you know that the number of homeschool families has more than doubled just during the COVID pandemic. So the Gallup did a poll in 2019. It was about 5% of families that were educating their children at home. By the same time in 2020, it was about 10% of families. And if you know anything about homeschool families, you know that homeschool families tend to be larger than government school families. And so probably well over 10% of America's children, if that poll is to be believed, are currently receiving a great education at home. How do I know it's great? Well, the facts speak to this very clearly. If you go over to the National Home Education Research Institute, that's NHERI.org, you will find all of the research on homeschooling, all the journal articles, the peer-reviewed literature. Really, it's phenomenal. The data that we have now. Homeschoolers typically score way above victims of government indoctrination centers, even on the government's own tests, right? Even on their own standardized tests, usually between 15 and 30 percentile points higher. Pretty incredible. And yet that is what's happening. And that same thing holds true between all so-called racial groups, right? They say, oh, we got to improve the racial achievement gap. Yeah, well, one great way to do it is by homeschooling, right? Black homeschool students score 23 to 42 percentile points above Black children in government schools. So if you want a high quality education for any type of child, any race of child, then that is one good way to do it. About 80% of the peer-reviewed studies on the academic achievement of homeschool students show that they perform significantly better than the children in institutional scores. This is true regardless of the parents' education levels. Homeschool students score way above average on the SAT, on the ACT. It's just really incredible. And actually, colleges have noticed this now. Even the most elite colleges and universities are out there actively looking for homeschoolers because they know that homeschooled students do better on virtually every metric. This is also true in social and emotional and socialization and all of that. A lot of data on this as well. According to Brian Ray's research, 87% of the peer-reviewed studies on the social, emotional, and psychological development of homeschool students show that they perform statistically significantly better than those in conventional schools. They're more tolerant. They're more likely to be involved in civic life. They're more likely to get good jobs. It's just amazing the success that homeschoolers have. And no matter where you live in America, if you're in America, there is a homeschool community near you. There are co-ops. There are all kinds of different options. Just an endless array of opportunities. And guys, I've argued in many, many places, including in my book on the deep state, that the primary weapon of the deep state in their war on America and on Christianity and on the family and on our liberties and on our Constitution, their primary weapon, more important than all the other weapons, is the government school system, the dumbing down, the indoctrination, and the sexualization of our children. And it seems so simple, right? Just pull your kids out. And I know that, oh, well, we need 2 incomes. Oh, yeah, we need to have a fancy car in the driveway. We need to go on vacation at Disney World. I know all the excuses. And, for some people, those are legitimate. There are a lot of options out there to help people who really do need assistance. There are scholarship funds. There are churches that will help out. There are co-ops that will help low-income people. There's just so many different options. So I encourage you, parents, to very seriously consider homeschooling as one of the many solutions that average people can engage in to help fight back against the deep state. Don't let them dumb down. Don't let them sexualize. Don't let them indoctrinate your children against God and against you and against your church and against your country and against the Constitution. You have the power to stop it. You don't need to write letters or petitions. You don't need to beg politicians. You can do it all by yourself. Look up the laws in your state. Get your children out. Do the right thing. Do it now before it's too late. And thank you for watching. Help get this message out, folks. We're doing a series on solutions in the Behind the Deep State show. We hope that these are informative and educational. We appreciate you guys sharing them out there. YouTube is all mad at us again. We got another strike. Facebook has drastically reduced our reach, and they're censoring us all over the place. So we depend on you guys to help get the word out. Thank you again for watching. I'm Alex Newman. This is Behind the Deep State, and God bless you all.
If you liked this video, then click that subscribe button with the little bell. If you didn't like this video, you're probably a member of the deep state. Am I wrong? Prove it. Hit the subscribe button. Just kidding. Thanks again, folks. God bless.